Welcome. Can you hear me? All right. Go up a little bit. You want the mic up? You guys can help me get this right. Let's see. Please join me in reading the gratitude up on the screen. I am thankful that love is very essence of gentleness, and I gladly embody both in my life. Oh, wow. That is beautiful. Thank you, Deborah. What is a practitioner and what do we do? In front of you on the seat back, there's a kind of a goldenrod sheet that explains who we are, the practitioners here. It has our phone numbers, and we encourage you to contact us if you're in need of prayer or support. If you have a prayer request, there's a yellow form. There's a yellow form that says affirmative prayer. Traja's waving in the back. And you'll see that. And I encourage you to fill that out today if you have something that's on your mind that you would like for the practitioners, our prayer team, to pray with and for you for this next week. And then when there is a demonstration, which there will be, please fill out the blue form. There's Nedra waving the blue form. Thank you, Nedra. Fill that out, as we love to see how that prayer has manifested in your life. Also, you can go online. If you don't fill that yellow form out here, you can also go online and go to grantspathcsl.org and fill it out online. And we have a practitioner who then forwards it to the rest of the group. Today, our table practitioner is the lovely Traja Wild back there. So she is holding the high watch for us. That means she is holding us all in prayer today, knowing the highest and best for each one of us as we are here, both the people that are here in person and then on Zoom or Facebook Live. So after service, if you feel like you would like in-person prayer, please see Traja, and she will either pray with you or guide you to one of the practitioners who will pray with you. That's what we love to do. That's one of our functions here at the service. So if you are a practitioner and you would like to be able to pray with people after service, please raise your hand. So Deborah, Traja, Bucky, great. Thank you. Now let's read the prayer together on the screen. I live my life in love, acceptance, and compassion. Gently, I let go of judgment and rest in the love that I truly am. Now please remain seated as we sing, I Am Loved. So I was thinking about today's title and all that is happening, and I found this beautiful passage from, what is her name? Diana Ensign, And the article in the Science of Mind magazine is called A Gentle, Loving Presence. And one of the little paragraphs is gentleness as our superpower. And I love that. So I'm going to read a short bit from there, and then we can go into meditation. As we develop greater harmony with Spirit, our gentleness becomes our superpower. Being gentle with ourselves, we align more with who we truly are. In time, we may begin to notice that what other people say and do no longer triggers us or controls our behaviors the way that it might have in the past. Becoming gentler with ourselves, we are more likely to let go of old grievances, worry less, and not spend so much time rushing through life fueled by anxiety. Instead, we relax our bodies, calm our thinking, and connect with our hearts. And this is the paragraph that I really connected with. It is there in our heart space that we find the gentle strength and learn, like the old growth trees, to stand sturdy in the winds of change, chaos, and turmoil. We learn to be self-governing, discerning how we want to be in the world and what is ours to do. What's more, we learn to live in the present moment, not worrying about the past or fearing the future. Storms may swirl around us, but we are stable, serene, and mighty within. So on that thought, if you want to just allow yourself to move inward, feeling that stability, knowing there are storms, there is chaos, but as we connect with Spirit, we become gentle with ourselves. We stay strong and stable and sturdy. And I now bless this time together, knowing the highest and best for each person here, as we allow ourselves to move into that sacred garden of connection with Spirit, just allowing that gentleness and that love to open our hearts. Now, as we come back to the room, we're going to enjoy some special music from Chip, and then a beautiful message from Reverend Linda Reppond. Thank you.
Again, the information from the CSL, the Home Office, talked about do we see and value and the diversity in our lives? Are we gentle with people we disagree with? Do we still realize that we're connected? And the exact words of our little prayer about acceptance and compassion. So, this is one of my songs I haven't played in a while, but it seemed to fit. This is a time, this is a place, this is a moment to embrace all that we are, all we can be, knowing the same Spirit lives in you and lives in me, in you and me. There's a power that's stronger than all of the hate. It binds us together in loving embrace, and we are all connected. We are all related in this world together. We have co-created, and wherever we are, for as long as we live, when we learn to accept and we learn to forgive, we create love. This is the time, this is the place, this is the moment to embrace all we believe and know to be true, that the same Spirit lives in me and lives in you, in me and you. There's a power that's stronger than pain or despair, a spirit of hope that the whole world can share, 'cause we are all connected, we are all related in this world together. We have co-created, and wherever we are, for as long as we live, when we learn to accept and we learn to forgive, we create love. So give me your hand, put it in mine. Take just a little time to show me that you know we are all connected.
We are all related.
We are all
related. In this world we have
in
co-created.
this world together. We have co-created, and wherever we are, for as long as we live, when we learn to accept and we learn to forgive, we create love.
Let's hear it again for Chip and Bucky. Well, Reverend Dr. Linda Reppond lives in Ashland, Oregon, and is mostly a retired CSL minister, but she still makes appearances, apparently. While no longer working in a full-time ministry role, Dr. Linda remains a fierce advocate for the young, emerging spiritual leaders of our movement, as a mentor and coach, and as an honored elder at events, and chair of Regeneration, the scholarship fund for young people entering ministry. Awesome. Dr. Linda was the founding minister of the Launching Pad, a dedicated young adult church in Centers for Spiritual Living. For over 10 years, the Launching Pad, with locations in Berkeley, California, in St. George, Utah, and Ashland, Oregon, served as a magnet for conscious young adults who choose to live in community and be supported in deepening a personal spiritual practice within a community of peers. The vision for this ministry grew out of Dr. Linda's previous work as the Managing Director for International Youth and Family Ministries for the Centers for Spiritual Living. We worked together at the Center for Spiritual Living in Burbank, was it? Yeah, it was at Burbank. been a while. A lifetime of work with teens and young adults, preceding Dr. Linda's entrance into the ministry. She served as director of the National Runaway Switchboard, president of the National Network for Youth, and executive director for Seattle's Youth Community Service, Special Olympics in Washington, and other charities. Dr. Linda received a master's in consciousness studies at Holmes Institute in San Diego, and she received her Doctor of Ministry at Pacific School of Religion in Berkeley. She currently serves as on the nominating committee chair for Centers for Spiritual Living. And I just want to tell you that she's one of my favorite people. And we have worked together for a long time. And she actually, when I first came to candidate here at this center, I was in my, in my RV, because, there's not a lot of rental, houses here. So she allowed me to stay at her home in Ashland, park my RV in front of her house, and stayed in her basement for a week or so while I figured out what I was doing here. And meanwhile, I got the letter of call, and here I am 8 years later or so. But we're in for a treat today. She is awesome, and let's give her a wonderful welcome. Dr. Linda Reppond.
Hi. I am very happy to be with you today. It doesn't seem like it's that far from Ashland to here, but I don't get up here all that often. So, very good to see you. I love the drive up here today. I think spring is about my favorite season. Now, I say that most seasons, but spring really is it. Just like the 1,000 different colors of green that are, emerging every day. You just look out on the hillsides that, sometime later this year might be brown. Right now, they're just emerald. It's gorgeous. So I got here in a big state of gratitude because it's so gorgeous outside. And it is finally spring. We've been waiting for this. But we're also in the middle of another season. Maybe you've noticed this is the beginning of the full tilt election season. It's going to go from here to November, and we are promised a wild ride this year, in many respects. And this is cyclical. This happens, it definitely happens every 4 years. It actually happens every year, whether it's local or state or national politics in our country. That there is a tone that ramps up to elections that it may be more so now than, well, certainly more than I remember in my lifetime. Very conflicted, very us, them, very othering. Like if you're not with me, then you're not worth air. You don't get to breathe. The conversation can be very harming and divisive for our sense of community, because in this teaching in Science of Mind community, we are based on a deep belief in oneness. So there's no othering out there, because you're just another me. That we teach that, we practice that, and yet we walk as real community members through this path of the months that we're now smack in the middle of, what I'll call election season. It calls for this theme of the month of giant gentleness. That's what's called for. If we could just be the people who introduce a little handful of kindness and gentleness into whatever the discourse is, I think we will have done a great good in the world. That's really worth pursuing. Some of you, I'm sure, follow the book of the month that goes with these themes that we follow throughout the year. I try to read them. I don't always get there, but this time, for the first time I can remember, the book is a fiction book. We're generally big on God books and self-help books, philosophy, and the book is it's called A Psalm for the Wild Built, and I've listened to it on audio because that's kind of how I read these days. But I listened to it twice because I was so engaged by it. and it's the story on a different planet or moon, sometime in the future, of the story of this monk who was devoted to spiritual practice, and a part of their culture was monks would take a little tea cart and drive around the countryside and set up their little tea cart, and with a table and tea and and wait, and people that wanted to just have somebody to talk to or to just take a break for a while would come sit with them and have tea. I think it's a really lovely idea of ministry. I kind of like, I'll sign up. It sounds great. And in that time, he connected with a robot who had been sent from the robot community that had been separated from the people community for like 200 years. And they ran into each other and went off on all of these adventures. And the giant gentleness of this story, which is why it was a really cool book to pick for this conversation, is that time after time, it was the robot who was offering the most kindness, the most gentleness, the most accepting of whatever happened, because he wasn't programmed to do anything else. Robots were programmed to serve, and they evolved over time in this story to have consciousness and to be very interactive, but they had never been built to be divisive or diminishing people in any way. So as our little monk is struggling with all of the human struggles of life, and his family and situations, and his cart broke down, and here's the little robot just going, "Isn't this great? We're right underneath this beautiful tree." It was a great story in letting go of otherness, because even though I can have equanimity towards most people, machines and I, not so much. So it was a great lesson for me, and just love everybody, even the robots. There's a thing about approaching this way of being in these challenging times that my friend Reverend Darrell Jones has coined as being "stay in the room." Now, where he came up with that, I think he's writing a book about it actually, was our recent CSL convention within Charleston, South Carolina. And we always have our conventions in February. And even though February is Black History Month, we had never actually done much more than a nod to that in planning our conventions. But this time we did. And in part because we were meeting in Charleston, South Carolina, the place where probably more slaves entered this country than any other location in America. It was like a huge slave trade center happening in Charleston. And so all of those things came together into what was really a very profound week of dialogue, and as you can imagine, some challenging conversations that needed to happen, probably needed to happen for a very long time. But us white folks were sort of like oblivious to it most of the time. So there were some really amazing conversations, and there was a dialogue, sort of an open forum where the top leadership just sort of made themselves available. And unlike the experiences that Reverend Steve and I had back when we were doing this, the conversation was actually open. It was an undefended place. Like, come tell us what's on your mind. Tell us what you'd like us to do different. It was a very big conversation in the midst of all of this coming together around diversity, inclusion, belonging kinds of issues. And somewhere in the middle of it, this cisgendered white man in his probably early 60s just stood up and said, "I don't know how to be. I don't know where to be in all of this. I don't know how to be here, because it feels like we're moving into things that are completely foreign to me, and it doesn't feel wrong. I just don't know how to be here." And they thanked him for his authenticity and honesty, and the conversation moved on, and somebody else raised an issue, and somebody else raised an issue. And after a little while, this African-American woman stood up and said, "I would like to speak to that man who spoke earlier, that white man that talked about not knowing how to be. Please stay in the room. That's what I want to say to you. I need you as an ally. I need you to broaden my perspective where I live in a largely all-black world. I need to see and know and connect with people that are more like you and not always all like me. Please stay in the room." And I think that's where Reverend Darrell came up with this idea, because It is so easy. I mean, I was raised, maybe there's one or two others of you that were raised in conflict avoidant families, but man, I was. My parents were very proud of saying, nobody's ever raised their voice in this house. I'm like, well, maybe there are a few things that should have been said, but we didn't say things. Um, so in that place where it's time to have a courageous conversation, my natural tendency is to just go, nope. And in fact, so much so that I just shut down. I sometimes don't even know what I'm thinking or feeling at that moment. I check out. So that's another way to leave the room. You can just shut down. But you can also physically leave. I don't know about you, but I know in a lot of families, especially as we get closer to election time, like those family gatherings where the people who believe differently and are very vocal about it than we do are having the barbecue, we might just be busy that day. We may just like skip the opportunities to engage with the people that you're afraid it might be ugly. It may be divisive. It might not go well. What about this idea of staying in the room? What if we were choosing instead to just say, I want to hear what you're about. I don't know that we're ever going to agree, but I would like to know what you're thinking and why you're thinking it and understand your perspective. I know I can stand up here and say this and it sounds really easy. It's hard for me to do too, It's like but I would just encourage you right now, think about where in your life, who in your life have you walked away from a conversation with, political or otherwise? But who is it that you're choosing to either emotionally or physically leave the room rather than engage? Just a thing to think about. The Dalai Lama, I love the Dalai Lama. He's amazing. And I think one of the greatest teachers on the planet today. But, he's very fond of saying, my religion is kindness. My religion is kindness. He has a book about that. And I so resonate with that because whatever the spiritual practice, and it seems to me, the deeper I go into my own practice, the more it's like other religions' practices that go into some sort of metaphysical deep space. It's a connection to the divine, to all that is, and to just sit in the juice of that. And that's Catholic, that's Buddhist, that's Islam. It's like every religion goes to that place. So it's not so much about what the teaching is, but it comes down to, out of that space, the response is to be kind. Just to be kind. And I suspect we can all come up with a dozen stories right off the top of our head of opportunities for small one-on-one kindnesses. Things that you've seen, things that you've done, to just see like a struggling mother with kids around her in a grocery line starting to put back items because the bill was bigger than they thought it was going to be. And the opportunity to just step up and say, I got it. I got you covered. Or to be in a long line of traffic. Oh my God, Bay Area. I'm so glad I don't live there anymore. In a long line of traffic that's waiting to, get through some sort of obstacle. And you see this person on the side street who's been waiting a very long time because the line goes on forever. You just take that moment to go, come on in. All right. And you're going to be one car length later than you were going to be to start with. That's what that is. But it matters to people. That kind of kindness lifts their load, and we don't know what people are dealing with. We don't know what's on their plate at any point in time. I love the Aesop fable story of the lion and the mouse. You know the story? So the lion is asleep in the jungle, taking his afternoon nap, and just completely relaxed. And this little mouse who's going through the forest, comes up suddenly, and there's this lion in front of him, and in his panic and desire to get away from it as fast as possible, he accidentally runs across the lion's nose and wakes him up. The lion grabs him, like, I'll eat you for a snack. And the little mouse is just like, no, please don't eat me. Just please let me go. Um, and the lion is kind of like, well, he's like, I will do you some great kindness if you will just let me live today. And in a moment of generosity, the lion goes, all right, go. Time goes by, and the lion is out doing his, finding lunch activity of the day, and happens into a snare, and gets caught in a hunter's snare, which is a whole like series of ropes that when it falls down, it ties him down, and he's like ensnared. That's where the word comes from. So, being a lion, he just lets out this huge roar. He's just like, no! And clear on the other end of the jungle, the little mouse goes, oh, I know that voice. And so he comes running. And here's the lion, like all entangled and furious. And the little mouse goes, I can help. And he goes over and he takes the biggest chunk of the rope that's tied to the ground, and he starts gnawing. And he gnaws all the way through it. And the lion is free. And the little mouse says, you laughed at me when I said I would do you a great kindness. But I just want you to know that little things can do big kindnesses. I love that story. It also brings to mind a personal story. I've thought about this so many times over the years. I'm just going to tell you the story. A number of years ago, I was flying to a conference in D.C., and I had just arrived at the conference and checked into my hotel. The conference started the next morning, but it was sort of late afternoon. I checked into the hotel, and immediately as I get into my room, the phone is ringing. We didn't do cell phones back then. It's that far ago. The phone's ringing, and it's my brother telling me that my mother has suddenly passed away in Seattle. I'm in D.C. And sudden deaths are so hard. It's like when you can prepare for it, that's hard too. But when completely unexpected, I was just a mess. And I paced that room, and I cried, and just for hours. And I got myself, on a flight early the next morning, but that's as soon as I could get out of there. And I finally I need to go down to the lobby. I just can't stand being in this room another minute. So I go down to the lobby of the hotel. And I'm at a conference where I have a lot of colleagues that I kind of know, but I don't really have any friends, and I'm just like that. So there was sort of like nobody to call on, but I could have used a friend. So I'm sitting in the lobby by myself and running through tissues and just kind of being there, but it was better to be with people than by myself. And this woman that I was pretty sure I knew from a previous conference came over to me and she said, are you okay? Well, then the waterworks just started. No, I was not okay. And I just like, I cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And this woman stayed with me for hours. I mean, I didn't go to bed, so I don't think she stayed all night, but she stayed with me for hours, just letting me talk and cry and talk and cry. And I'm thinking that she's my colleague I was the director of Special Olympics for the state of Washington. There's like one per state. And I thought she was my colleague from Nebraska. And the next morning, as I'm checking out of the hotel to go to the airport, the real executive director from Nebraska was checking into the hotel, and I realized, like, I don't have a clue who that woman was that sat with me for hours. I'd never seen her before. She just looked a little like somebody I had sort of known. A total stranger. And I thought about that so many times because it took a lot to just sit with somebody who was just like a mess. So, kindness. But back to the political activism, social activism, conversation. I just want to keep us engaged in that. There are a lot of situations in which love is called for, don't you think? That just in the world, as we start thinking about those things, the things that I don't know, I chafe about. Like I'm pretty much, and a fierce advocate for many things. As Reverend Steve said, youth being the highest on that list. But I can be like a rah, rah, rah kind of person. I don't know if that's probably surprises you. But I am really learning in my old age that the against energy just gives you more againstness. That when you go to that protest for against this policy or this decision or this, action of the city or the county or the state or the and you join together with other people who are just as mad as you are about this thing that shouldn't be happening, what you get is more of that feeling. You get to walk home in the juice of that. And I don't know, it's a bad time to be like, trying to be loving towards a grandchild or something. Because you're just like all wound up. And that's what the against energy does. And what we can do, and I do believe this within churches, many hours have been spent with our ministerial colleagues and certainly within communities of whether or not we should take any sort of position around anything that might be felt as political. In the world right now where we stand, I believe that anything that people feel like they can disagree about, they're calling political. So that covers a lot that we should not talk about. I don't agree with that. I think that we need to be willing to stand for our principles, stand for human dignity, for care of all people, care of the planet. I mean, how did that get to be political? Oh, it did. But what we are asked to stand for is whatever our inner guidance in standing in the principle of love and oneness calls us to. And sometimes it's more than, entering a voting booth, although please do that. But sometimes it calls for taking action and being a lone voice, standing for something when your neighbors may not agree with that. When it happens from the place of love and kindness and regard for human dignity, and that regard for human dignity including the people who have the opposite position than you do, then the outcome actually always moves the needle forward. You may not get the decision that you wanted, you may not win the election or the whatever, but when the conversation is inclusive and loving and kind, it moves the needle forward as a human race in our own evolution. It does that. And that's important. That's important for us to do. I want to say just a little bit about social media because it's kind of everywhere. And some of you have checked out of it and I'm not going to do it anymore. And you remember me do it way too many hours a day. I'm scrolling through. And it can be a very helpful thing if you're trying to promote your business or, stay connected to people that you care about. I'm not anti-social media at all. But I'm so engaged with the logarithm idea because it is so science of mind. What you are clicking on is what you get more of. And if you don't like what's showing up, you clicking on some stuff you probably don't want to have in your life. But that's exactly how it works, and so it keeps feeding you back more of what you're already saying you want to see. Folks, that's what we teach. We teach social media in a different package, I think. And the only concern I have about all of that is that we can put ourselves into a homogeneous feedback loop with that, whether it's social media or whether that's how we do church or whatever. We can get ourselves into a position where we don't ever encounter anybody not like us. They don't think like us, they don't look like us, they don't have the same pronouns as us. We can move into a space where the diversity is lacking in the world of social media. In the news, how many of you watch the news or read the news every day? I'd say maybe a third of you. It's hard, if you're really devoted to a spiritual practice, it's hard to flip back and forth between seeing what is in the world, and especially since what is now from multiple slants, and so you don't even know if what is. But just to stay on top of what's happening in the world. For me, it requires me to get present to what it is, to understand what's happening and what is being reported on, and to try and understand what actually is happening. I was a journalism major in college, so I have 12 news sites on my phone. I'm a junkie. But for me, it's because I want to hear all the different points of view about whatever it is I'm reading, because that's how I get to what might have actually happened. If you look at the left, and you look at the right, and you look at the intellectual perspective, you look at the economic perspective, like pretty soon you kind of get a picture. So I'm that kind of person. It's, but it's hard to do that and keep my heart open, keep my belief in oneness available, and not do the othering that is so prevalent in all of the ways we cover whatever it is. Would you just do a little process with me for a minute? Just if you're comfortable, close your eyes. And whether you follow the news all the time or just are sort of like vaguely aware of what's going on because you hear it around you, bring to mind the things that you're aware of that are in the news right now. Election, trials, the war. The shootings, all of the things that you find being pointed out in the news. And in your mind's eye, just take all of those things and kind of smush them together into a ball in front of you. Just like take all those topics and make a ball in your awareness and put it out in front of you. All the things, just a big old ball of dough. And then allow your heart to just beam love at that ball. Just beam love straight out of your heart into all of those situations. Lift them up. Surround it with love. Love all of it, even your feelings about it. Just allow yourself to give it love. And when you're done, just bring yourself back to here. Do you feel any better? Is all of that a little less frustrating, disturbing than it was when you were just looking at it as news? This is a thing we can do. We can do this. We can send love to what's happening in the world. And I believe, down to my toenails, I believe it matters. I believe that the energetic movement of consciousness within our hearts and minds and beings right here in Little Oak Grants Pass can affect things that are happening in the Middle East. That we can send our love and just desire for peace, for wholeness, for safety to those people. And it matters. And there is a collective energy that happens when lots of people are doing it. And so here we are. We're more than a little, we're a lot. Carrying that consciousness forward matters in the world. And it definitely, absolutely matters within us. It is that kindness, figuring out how can I bring kindness, how can I bring love to actual day-to-day situations and people I'm encountering in my life. How can I bring love to that thing that's out there that's sort of amorphous but is happening in the world in other places? How do I bring love to that? And lastly, I really want to engage you in how do I include myself in that love? How do I love me that way? Can I take myself and all of the woulda, coulda, shouldas that I, carry on in my head into a place where I can beam that love at little old me? Folks, that's our work. All those things. And it is, I think, the most joyous work we could do. And it matters. Really matters. Let's pray. So once again, just turning within and allowing that infinite presence, that wholeness of love that is right now breathing each of us, something greater than ourselves. And it is breathing life through us into the world. And so simply allow that awareness to seep through my entire consciousness, through my heart, through every cell of my body. I know this for myself, and I know this for every person here, every person listening to this message, that every cell of our bodies is lit with that divine light. The wholeness of that Christ consciousness lives at the very cellular level of our being. Oh, and that is the best news ever. And so as we move in the world, in our individual lives, assessing where staying in the room would be the act of love, of where my ability and willingness to hold a situation beyond my control in a space of love and acceptance. When I can hold myself in that place of love and acceptance, I say, yes, God, I just hand all of that over. My willingness to be in that place, my willingness to hold that consciousness helps open the door to more of it manifesting as my truth. And so I bring to the altar my willingness to be more, to do more, to love more, and allow that willingness to open my heart a little wider and allow more of that divine essence that is already the truth of my being to live and express through me in the world. I can think of no greater place to stand. So grateful to just stand there in the knowingness of that divine love and wholeness. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. So it is. Amen. Thank you.
Let's hear it again for Dr. Linda Reppond. Wow, some things to think about there, huh? Okay, well, it's time for our prosperity affirmation. So I invite you to put your gift on your heart, or if you're just putting your hand on your heart, if that's what you're given today, that is enough. And let's recite this together, which says, how glad I am to give generously to this sacred center for spiritual living. Together we thrive. And so it is. Amen. And now some beautiful music.
Thank you. It was such a great talk. I got up here and I almost played a different song. You inspired me. But this one fits as well.
I reach out my hand to you. You are part of me. I open my arms to you. You are part of me. We are one in spirit. We are one with all there is. I open my heart to you. You are part of me. I offer my good to you. You are part of me. I share my joy with you. You are part of me. We are one in spirit. We are one with all there is. I celebrate life with you. You are part of me. I give
of me.
I believe in peace for you. You are part of me. We are one in spirit. We are one with all there is. I offer my prayer for you. You are part of me.
Thank you. It's time to say a prayer for our offertory this morning. From the love of pure spiritual energy, these tithes and gifts have been collected. They are evidence of our faith, our belief in our ability to manifest in this world of form. And they do good work in the world by blessing the giver and receiver. And they allow this, the Grants Pass Center for Spiritual Living, to be open and available for those who are choosing to remember who they are and for those who may not know it yet. And for that, this community thrives, and we are all blessed. And so it is. Amen.
We're going to do our closing song, and you probably want to stand. And great song about kindness, and it's going to be the last, just the last verse of Put a Little Love in Your Heart.
Take a good look around, and if you're looking down, put a little love in your heart. I hope when you decide kindness will be your guide, put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place, and the world will be a better place for you and me. Just wait and see. Oh, put a little love in your heart. Whoa, yeah. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart.
Look around and
Put a little love in your heart. Oh, put a little love in your heart. Oh,
now.
put a little love in your heart, yeah. Put a little love in your heart.
And now for our benediction. Please repeat after me. Something wonderful is happening right now.
Something wonderful is happening right now.
It's happening in my mind.
Happening in my mind.
It's happening in my body.
Happening in my body.
It's happening in the body of my affairs.
Happening in the body of my affairs.
I think it.
I think it.
I feel it.
I feel it.
And I know it.
I know it.
Just the way that it is.
Just the way that it is.
Just the way that it is not.
And just the way that it is.
Thank you, life.
Thank you, life.
Have an awesome week, everybody. Blessings. Much love.
All right.
Thank you, Dr.